Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now, let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Brian today. Brian's an individual that reached out to me, and we got connected about some interesting things that he is experiencing out there in the state of Indiana, in the southern part. So welcome to the show, Brian. How's it going today?
It's going really good, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And you've told me a bit before this, Brian. You're going through a lot of things in an area that is very intense. And I'm just thankful to have you on the show today so you can, share what you've been experiencing. But I want to make sure that we have the time for you to share, and we may not even get through it all in one episode. We'll see. But Brian, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you. Feel free to take us back to when this first started happening for you and what you are experiencing in this location.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start off by the first experience that I've had. And this was back in 93. I was deer hunting as bow season, and I was in Scott County at this time in Austin Bottoms. It's a marshy woods. I was climbing out of my deer stand. It's getting real dark, starting to get real dark. I couldn't see little saplings anymore. And there's been a big buck in the area, and I've been trying to, get that buck. So I waited till close to dark so I could sneak out. I was about a half mile back in the woods, and I hadn't got out of my stand and walked maybe 20 feet, and I started hearing walking. So I sat down at the base of a tree. I was going like, I'm just going to let this, whatever it is, walk on by, and then I'm going to get up and sneak out because I couldn't see anything. And so I sat there probably 5 minutes listening to something kind of rustling around in the leaves. And then all of a sudden to my left, it sounded like it was right up on me, but I'm thinking now it's more like probably 10, 20 feet away. I hear this loud scream. I mean, it started out real deep and it got real high pitched. By the time it got real high pitched, I'd done jumped up, said, I'm done with this, and took off running. I mean, I ran out of the woods, and I don't get scared easy. I've been in the Army for over 18 years. I've been all over woods, all over the United States. I was in the infantry. I've been in the woods. I've hunted my whole life. I have never heard something that loud and that powerful where it would shake my organs. I literally felt like a vibration going through my body. It's like being in somebody's car. It had real loud bass, and it just, every time it thumps, your whole insides just shake. And that's what it did to me that day. Well, needless to say, I never went back. I never went back here to get my deer stand or anything. As far as I know, that stand is still strapped to the tree. And I quit hunting that area altogether. And that was back then. I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot because I didn't see anything, but I'm telling you, man, the power that it had for the lung capacity to shake me like that, it is in the back of my mind for years. It could have been a Bigfoot, but I never heard of one in that area at that time. So we're going to push on up to 2021. My son and I were gold panning up and around the Medora area in Indiana. And this creek had a lot of geodes and black sand. I was hitting the Bedford cracks, trying to get that black sand out and paint it. And then I just kind of stood up one time to turn around and looked, and about probably 50 yards up the creek was something squatted down, and it was jet black. I mean, just as black can be. And it had looked like fur hanging off of it everywhere. And I told Peyton, my son, said, hey, there's a Bigfoot. I was just joking with him. And he looked at it and he said, we got to go. I was like, no, come on, man. It's probably just a tree stub or something. He said, no, we need to go. So he must have seen something a little different than what I was looking at. But, we left because he just was adamant about leaving after seeing that. And I went back again, probably like 3 weeks later to that same area and was going to pan some more. And I looked over and that black thing was gone. It wasn't there. So I thought, well, that's strange. Now that I took pictures of it, and now that I look at the pictures, I zoom in on it. Oh, wow, there's hair hanging off of it. The thing's covered in hair. It's just squatted down trying to hide, but it was on the edge of the bank on the creek, and I was in the creek too. So I seen it, I just couldn't see its face, and just this whole left side of its body. But now that after going back and looking at the pictures, I think it probably was a Bigfoot. And I never really was a believer. My son is 100% at the time was not a believer in Bigfoot. He just thought the whole thing was a joke. So fast forward again, 2022, I buy a cabin with 10.5 acres, and now it's surrounded by woods, all the way around me. I'm close to the Hoosier National Forest, Ohio River. And we bought this cabin, and man, it's just me and my son, and he was 19 at the time. So we had to remodel right off the bat. So the first week we were there, my son wanted to deer hunt like the next day. Then after the first night we stayed there, he wanted to deer hunt because it was still deer season. So he walks back there one early morning before daylight, and he starts texting me saying, "Hey, I'm hearing something hit trees back here." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "He goes, the trees or something smacking the trees." And I told him, I said, "Well, it's probably just the wind blowing. It's so cold, the wind's blowing, and the trees are probably hitting each other, making a popping noise." He said, "No, there's zero wind. There's no wind blowing at all." And I said, "I don't know, man. It ain't nothing." So he hunted. He said every time he went out there that week, he would hear that. And, now that we got going on what we got going on, he said that's the same stuff I heard while I was deer hunting. Just sounded like somebody taking a wooden ball bat and smacking the tree real hard. And but later that week, I hadn't got the bed put together. Like I said, we were trying to remodel while we were living there as we moved in. And I was sleeping on the couch one night, and had the window cracked in the living room, and the window was right above the couch, and I kept hearing these howls. And I'm like, "What in the world? I've never heard that before." And it just is like right outside, right on the back of the cabin there, probably within 50 feet of the cabin. And these weird sounding scream like howls, but they wasn't long lasting. They would just do it like short blasts. I thought, well, maybe it's a red fox or something, but it didn't sound like a fox. I just assumed that's what it could be. I never thought Bigfoot. So that happened that night, and about probably the next morning or the morning, I think it's the day after, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was doing work on the flooring. It was 5 o'clock. I went outside through the garage and opened the garage door, just kind of stepped out to get some fresh air, and stretch. And I seen up in the trees this green glowing light. It looked like an orb about the size of a volleyball. And it was going up and down, sideways. I mean, it's zigging around doing all kinds of stuff. It would hover for a little while, then it would shoot down. And it looked like these little gases would shoot out the sides of it whenever it would move, right before it moved. And I was sitting there watching it, and I was recording it with my phone, and I sent you a video of it. And there for a few seconds after just watching, all of a sudden something above it flashed real bright red, and it lit up the clouds and everything. And then that green thing just would maneuver around a little bit more, and then was just gone. So I went in the house, thought that was weird. I've never seen anything like that for my life. And but I would see a lot of lights out there, a lot of orbs, these big long rods that my security camera would pick up, these bright rods. They're probably about 3 foot long, just shooting through the air. And I'm talking, 10 feet, 15 feet off the ground, the way I have my cameras positioned. And but I would start hearing whistling when I would sit out on my deck on the side. My cabin is built on these big wooden pillars, and it's built on a hillside. And down the bottom of the hill, there's a creek. It runs right through there. I'm kind of like in a valley there. But I would sit out on my deck. It's 10 feet in the air, off the side. That's where I always go out and sit. And I would hear whistling out in the woods. I'm like, well, who in the world would be out here in the middle of the night whistling? No, I didn't see any lights. I would whistle back, then they would stop. Then nobody would whistle again. And I would tell my son, I was like, man, there's people out there whistling. And there's nobody lives back there. There's no houses back there. There's, hundreds of acres. And so I just thought somebody was just trespassing, and didn't think nothing of it. And then we would start hearing like these knocks, like somebody hitting the trees. It sounded like with baseball bats, just pow, pow. Then I would hear footsteps walking, like heavy footsteps walking off. And then a couple of seconds later, I hear another pow. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, somebody's back here destroying something. So I would go out there the next day and look. And then I started finding all these, like, when I first bought the place, I searched the whole woods. I looked at everything. And then I went back. This was probably 2 months after living there. I went back in the woods again just to investigate the walking and the popping, somebody hitting trees and stuff. And that's when I noticed all these structures being built. They were like sticks leaning up against trees. One of them, it looked like a cage. Like they took all these cedar limbs and built it around this cedar tree. And it looks like they made some kind of cage or something, or a hideout, or I don't know. And I just thought that was really strange. I took a lot of pictures, of all the structures I seen back here. And then as it got into spring, we started hearing these trees falling. I mean, literally, within 2 days, we had 5 trees that fell. And I thought that was really weird. I'm like, because they would fall in a general area, but they weren't like one would fall, hit another one, and then later that other one, end up pushing that one down. No, these were like, you could hear it cracking and popping, all of a sudden fall and hit the ground, real loud thud. Like I said, 5 of them in 2 days, but we had a total of 8 fall since I've lived there. And I was walking out to my truck one morning, and I heard a tree start popping, cracking. I could see it on the backside of my cabin. When I looked over the roof, I seen the tree falling, and it landed across the creek. I thought, wow, I've never seen a tree fall in person. And I just thought that was strange. At that time, that was about the 8th tree that fell. And so I got, on the left and didn't think none of it. I just thought, man, my trees are all dying. And let me see here. I'm going to turn my page. Okay, now we're going to skip on up to June of 2024. That's when stuff really started getting crazy. My son and I, like I said, we were hunters. We like to shoot our guns and stuff. And I would always sit out on the deck. Like I said, it sits up real high. And I would set little targets out on the other side of the valley on the hillside there. And I would shoot my 22 at the little targets. And after doing that for about 2 or 3 days, because I would just get out there and just shoot around. I enjoyed it. We started hearing the wood knocks real close to the house, and then they would come up and smack the side of the house really hard. Oh, let me back up. I just got a Yorkie dog, and right when all this started happening, probably only had him. Well, the night that I got him, we started hearing all the knocking and stuff, and the noise and everything. And so I would set out my Android phone on the porch to record overnight. And I was picking up these sounds of like rocks rolling on the floors, the boards of my deck. It would just roll across it and pick up and it would tap on the deck. And then the rocks would roll across it again. And I've got plenty of recordings of all this. And then they would take sticks and just tap on my deck. And I think what they were doing was trying to get my dog to run to the patio doors and, so they can see him. But at the time, I didn't know what they were doing. And that continued for about a week. They would come up and smack the side of the house. I mean, they would hit it so hard it would wake me and my son up. He paid to come in my room and say, hey, something hit the house. I said, yeah, no, I just heard that. But at the time, I thought, well, maybe a tree limb fell and hit the house out the overhang or the roof of the back deck. And I thought, well, maybe a limb fell. I'll check it in the morning. I would go out there and nothing. There was nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing. It hit the roof because it sounded like it smacked the side of the back of the house really hard. And it done that 2 or 3 times, smacking it. And we just didn't think nothing. We didn't know what to think, actually. And we were sitting in the living room, I'm sorry. We went outside to look, and then I found some tracks on the back behind my building back there, some footprints. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I didn't know what it was. At first I thought bear. I said, there's no way it's a human. That's way too big. So I just didn't think enough of it. And that evening, I seen my very first one. I was sitting on the deck, and about 60 yards away, once this big black thing stood up. It was almost dark, but I could see the silhouette of it. It stood up and took tree. The tree is about 30 inches, and it was wider than the tree. And I thought, oh my God. And I told Peyton, I said, man, what is that? He goes, I can't see it. I can see something black, but I can't tell what it is. I said, yeah, I don't know what it is either. So I started recording it with my Android. And it would like hold onto the tree with its left hand and lean way out to the right. I mean, it was almost sideways. It's leaning out so far, and it's holding itself up with its left hand on that tree. Then it pulled itself back up, and it just kept doing that, going in and out behind the tree. And I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't tell what it was. Even on my video, I couldn't really tell what it was. But what I did, like the next day, is I would screenshot the video as it's playing. I just kept screenshotting it. And then I seen pictures, still pictures of it, of the video. Straight up Bigfoot. I mean, oh my gosh, my heart and everything in me just dropped to the bottom of my stomach. I was like, whoa, what is this? And I showed it to my son, and we just like, we were scared. I mean, we didn't know what to do. Never in a million years that we think we'd see something like that, let alone in southern Indiana in our backyard. And so we started trying to get a hold of people to figure out, without looking crazy. And we finally got a hold of Indiana BRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization, and they talked to us and stuff, and they were going to come out and meet us. So I told Peyton, I said, well, we need to go out there and look at that print again. That could be his print. And I'm thinking there's just one out there, right? So we go out there, and I look, I said, man, I'm going to cast this. So I got some stuff to cast it with. And while we were sitting there, Peyton kind of walked off a little bit, and he was just like standing about 20 yards from me. And I was sitting on the ground right by the cast. I was packing everything up in my backpack. And then I heard this noise. We both heard it, and we both looked in the same direction. But before I could turn my head to look, I seen on my periphery on my left side down the hill, we have a lot of undergrowth there, probably about 3-4 foot tall, little bushes and trees in the woods there. And I seen something duck down. I seen the shoulders, the head. It had a light gray face with jet black hair, and the hair was sticking up all over its head. And it ducked down. And I looked at Peyton and said, Peyton, I see one. It was only about 20 yards from me down the hill. It was trying to hide in the undergrowth there. And he said, no. Peyton raised his hand up and said, I'm not ready to see one. And starts walking off and left me out there. So I stood up, and I got my phone out, and I looked at it, and I said, I could see you. Because he had his little index finger and thumb holding a sapling still, like just pressed up against the side of a sapling, just holding it still so I wouldn't move. But I could see it. I could see its finger and thumb. So I took a picture. And as soon as I took the picture, one further down the hill, another 20 yards, stood up from behind this big wall of leaves. I mean, it was a big one. I don't know if it was a male or female, but it stood up, and all I could see was the bridge of its nose up to the top of its head. And it looked at me, and it would look down at the little one. It would look at me, and it just kept doing that. And I'm like, yay, now that I know you're all here, it's okay that you're here. I'm not going to hurt you, And I told him, said, look, anything on these side of these pink ribbons on the trees to over on this side, you're safe. Nobody's going to bother you here. You're more than welcome to be here. And I said, I just casted this print. If you don't want me to have it, smash it, and I'll know you don't want me to cast them. And so I went on into the house. Next day, we go out there to cast. Well, I'm going to back up, because when I woke up that morning, I took the picture of it, and me and him looked at it. We couldn't believe what we were looking at. But like I said, all I could see was the forehead of the one and the fingers of the other one. That morning at 5 o'clock, I had a vision in my head. I was asleep. I had the vision of that big one, the face of it, that's behind the leaves, like I had my picture. It just flashed, and my ear turned on. It sounded like a speaker, like a buzzing of a speaker, or just this weird buzzing noise, kind of like a electric wire. You know what I mean? There's some kind of buzzing. And as soon as that started buzzing, I heard the word Wagum. A real deep voice said Wagum. And I woke up. I said, yeah, because I thought somebody was in my room and said, wake up. It sounded like a man said, wake up. and then when I was laying in bed, nobody was there. I was like, wow, that's crazy. It's so real. It sounded like somebody was right here. But I said, they didn't say wake up. They said wake 'em. And I kept saying wake 'em like 3 or 4 times. I was like, what in the world is that? But I just thought it was a dream, and I thought the experience I had the evening before of seeing them just really affected me. And so I got in the living room, and Peyton come in there, and we had, like I said, we had the little Yorkie, and they've been tormenting that poor dog. I mean, they would peck on the windows, the doors, the deck. That dog was so scared that he slept under my bed. He used to sleep on the bed with me. And then he started sleeping under my bed. He wouldn't come out unless I got up to leave. Then that's when he would come out from under the bed. Well, I was in the living room. I was going to feed him, but he was standing under the coffee table. He wouldn't come out from under it. And he kept walking around all stiff-legged, and he was like moving his head real slow, sniffing the floor. And he would raise his head back up, and then Peyton came in there and said, hey, man, there's something wrong with Easton here. He's not watching me. And Peyton tried to get him to come up to him, and he wouldn't. He wouldn't leave the coffee table. And I told Peyton, I said, well, just shut the door, because, the patio door, I said, maybe something's out there. He's sensing something. He might be smelling, because he knew they were there. Like, I got videos of him looking out the window and barking and growling, and there's nothing out there that we could see. But Peyton got up. He went to go slide the patio door shut. And then all of a sudden we heard this loud screeching scream from under our cabin. Because like I said, our cabin's up off the ground and it's all open down there. But we heard this loud screech, like scream, roar all together in once. It just did it, and it lasted for about 3 seconds. And Peyton went out, he shut the door, because it kind of scared him and me both. We were like, what was that? And then it scared Easton so bad that he stood there and pooped himself. And I felt really bad. I only had Easton for a week. So we cleaned him up, and I told Peyton I had to give him away to somebody. So I called a friend, and she took him. Peyton left and took Easton there. And then when Peyton got back, he come in and said, there's a really bad smell outside. I said, yeah, I know. I've been smelling it too. I don't know if it's sewer or what it is. And we've never smelled it before. And the smell, after Peyton said that, the smell was gone within probably 10 minutes. That was the only time we've ever smelled them, was that one time. And that's because they were right up under the house. But anyways, I got to get my notes. After we got rid of Easton, the activity at the house stopped as far as them hitting the house or trying to scare us. I don't know if somebody said they were trying to intimidate us to see what we would do if we would come out shooting or, move or whatever. But we didn't really ignore them. We just, what can you do, But I would hear laughing, like I've got recordings of laughing, like a baby laughing, and rock clacking, and these woo sounds, kind of whispery woo sounds down the creek. Let me see here. I think the only reason another reason why they made their stuff known, like I said, was because I was doing all the shooting. Like then the BFRO came out, not the BFRO, they came out later, but the Indiana BFRO came out, and we walked the woods and stuff. We found prints. They casted 2 of them. And we've seen a really nice one, but it only looked like maybe a juvenile size, about 12 inches, but it was real wide. But it wasn't deep enough to cast. But he noticed these structures that I didn't even notice. I mean, he was telling me, yeah, look, this limb didn't come, it's been forced here, in the ground and up on the tree. You can see where it scratched a tree where they forced it down. And we found other structures back in the woods that I didn't know was there. So he did his little podcast that evening, and he was like really happy about what he's seen. And then we had another group come out in September. It had a BFRO member and a lot of other researchers that he invited from different states. And they all came out and camped. We had a psychic out there. They camped for 4 days or 4 nights. And the last night we had a bonfire. And we were all just sitting out there talking. Peyton had some friends over. We were all just out there talking and telling stories. And I kept hearing something behind me. And one of the researchers, he was hearing it too. And so I would take my phone and see if I could scan the area and get a picture, but I couldn't see anything on video. And so I put it on photo, my iPhone 15, and I don't know how, but it sees in the dark. And it picked up this portal that you couldn't see it with your own eyes. It picked up a portal and something walking through it. And I took a picture of it. And I showed it to everybody, and they were like amazed, like, "Where'd you take this picture?" And it's like, it's 30 yards from us right there by the trail. And so they all were happy to see that. And they end up, leaving after about 5 days of being there. And then I started noticing these things in the trees, these lights, and they had some kind of metal top with a red light, and it was stuck real high up in the tree, about 30, 40 feet up in the tree. And when I noticed it, I would take a picture of it, and then I would let my friend, one of the researchers, know, because I've been in contact with him ever since they've been out there. And I would send him the pictures. And he's like, "Go out and take another one." So I go out the next day and take another one. It's gone. But I did this like 4 times, and 4 different times with 4 different lights in different trees. But they were all the same light, just different positions. And then I started noticing these other things when I would walk the trail and come back. I would notice new nests. They build this great big massive long nest out of treetops. And they had these lights, or not lights, but camera looking things strapped to the trees. There would literally be straps on them. There'll be like 4 or 5 of them out there circling the nest. And I thought, man, what is that? That's nothing I put up, and it's never been here before. But every time I notice them, the next day they're gone. I wouldn't see them again. And, but I still see the technology every now and again. I get pictures of them, and the Bigfoots are holding some kind of white cube with a black line going through the middle of it. Sometimes I've seen one have a round one. It looks like a round security camera. It just a round white ball with a black lens in it. And they would hold it in their hand and hold it towards me. And they would look down their arm kind of like trying to stay in line of sight while they're holding it towards me as I'm taking their picture. Now, I don't know if that's something they're using to distort my camera on my phone, or if they're looking at me closer to that. I have no idea what it's for. But I've seen a lot of them have that. And every time I go to take a picture, I might get one picture of them without holding that thing, but the second picture, they're holding it up. Like they're going to try to zap my phone or something, because they have zapped my Android so much that I couldn't even use it anymore. It would literally just switch pages or tabs. It would just swipe like on its own side to side, or then it would glitch out and have lines going all through it. So I end up just not using that. I had to buy the iPhone. Like right now, they don't even make an effort in hiding. I see them every day, especially when I burn trash. I go out there and they'll raise up out of their nest and look at me. There's some nests I'll count, anywhere from 10 to 15 of them, but I've got over a dozen nests out there in my woods, and I had it logged. I'm sorry, right before June the 20th, before I seen the first one, I just had it logged. I take that back, is after June the 20th, right after June 20th. I had it logged, and that's when they got all the treetops. They started dragging these treetops into the clearing of the woods there and make these huge giant nests out of them. There's like little ditches, or kind of like rain runoffs, like grooved down into the ground. Like I call them drain ditches, but it's natural from the water running down the hill towards the creek. But they would build a nest right over top of those. It's just kind of, to me, I think they dig them out even deeper, and they just live there. But they're building, like they built a new nest today that I seen this morning. It's just crazy on how many they're building, and I've counted probably over 100 of them there at one time during deer season last year. I think ever since I told them they were safe there, they got the word out to every other one. But not only did they tell the other Bigfoots, there's Dogman out there too. And I've seen Dogman quite a bit. I was real close to one time. I went to the dumpster to burn some trash, and he looked, I'm assuming he was either by the building or by the dumpster. and started walking off as I was getting closer. He was about probably 20 yards from me when I noticed him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get a picture of this, because I seen his whole backside as he's walking back down the hill. And I took a picture, and right before I took it, he had turned his head like sideways to look behind over his left shoulder. And he knew I was taking this picture, and he had like this mean look on his mouth, like he was growling. But he was extremely muscular, real short hair, real thin at the waist, but his arms and shoulders and back was huge. He did have a tail and pointy ears and a snout. And I never believed in Dogman. I didn't even know what Dogman was until, I seeing them out there. And I've noticed a lot of Dogmen after that. There's probably several different ones that I've seen out there. Little ones, big ones. One that looked really old, but he was real big, barrel-chested, real small waist and skinny arms, jet black. Those are the ones that scare me. I'm not scared of the Bigfoot. The Dogmen scare me. I'm intimidated by them, by the looks. They just look at you like they're going to eat you. But every time I seen one, there was always a Bigfoot right close to him, except for that one that was walking down the hill. And I also got a picture of that same one that was walking down the hill. Another time, he had this white thing on top of its head, and it had like these blue and red lights going around it. And right above his head was like an upside down rainbow. And it's really weird. I don't know what it was. I mean, I sent you a picture of that. You'll have to check it out. But it was the back, but he had this thing on his head and an upside down rainbow. And I was like, man, they've got technology. And one of my very first pictures of them, or like probably the third picture I've ever taken, was an alien I call Little Yoda. He was standing on a vine, and he was wearing a gown, some kind of gown. You could see through it because I could see his legs through the gown and his feet. The gown was like wrapped up under his feet. But he was standing on this vine, and then on the other side of the tree was a Bigfoot sitting there messing with some limbs. And as I look closer at the picture, later on down the road here, actually recently, I noticed that Little Yoda had another Little Yoda right above him that had some kind of, looked like burlap pulled up over his head, where you could see his face and like he was wrapped up in it. Then I don't know where the Bigfoot was. I noticed there was several more Bigfoots further back, above him, further back up the hill. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even notice that. I was just so fixated on that one Little Yoda, I didn't even notice all the other details. But that's not the only one I've seen. I've seen him a couple of times. And then I've seen another little alien dude that's, maybe 20 inches tall that had like a bottle-shaped head. The back of his head come out to a point. Not a sharp point, but it just kind of domed back and tapered off. And he didn't have any clothes on. And he would lean up against the tree and blend in with the tree. But I can still see his outline. I've got pictures of him. You can see where he's outlined. His only part that wasn't blending into the tree was where he had his head turned sideways. His mouth was sticking out. His mouth just looked normal, but the rest of him was blending into the grayness of the tree and like a bark pattern. But I mean, you can see his shoulders, his head, his arms, his chest, his muscles, everything. And then there's another little alien thing. I don't know what he is. He's got real long, skinny arms and legs, and he's got, looks like a beak for a mouth, big black almond eyes, and he's probably only about 10 inches tall. And the reason I know this one so well, because I know it sounds crazy, but he was in my room. He was standing on the side rail of my bed when I woke up one morning. I grabbed my phone and kind of was looking at it, and I just kind of looked down, and he was standing on the side rail of my bed right beside my legs. He had his arms and his head above the mattress, and then as soon as I seen him, he noticed that I seen him. He looked down to his left at the floor, jumped off, ran under my bed. His head hit the box spring of my bed where he was running under so fast. I was by myself at this time. Peyton wasn't living with me during this time. He had a place in Scottsburg. Anyway, I jumped up and screamed, "What are you?" I was cussing and like, "What is that?" It took me a minute to get the courage to run out of my bed, to run into the kitchen to grab a flashlight. And so when I went and did that, I came back and I laid down in the breezeway there, where I could look to the right around the corner in my bedroom door. And I was shining that light under my bed, and I didn't walk back in my room. I just kept shining the light looking for it, and I didn't see it, so I shut my door. And I went back in the living room. I didn't go back in my room till that night, and I really searched it. Once I got the courage and calmed down, I really searched my room, and I did not see anything after that. But I know it wasn't dreaming because I seen it. I heard it run. I heard its little feet run on the wood floor, and I felt it hit my box spring underneath. It hit it pretty hard. But I looked, man, I didn't find it, but I've seen that little thing several times. I got pictures of him, multiple pictures of him. And I went outside now, people, because the research said, hey, talk to them. They understand what you're saying. I went out there and said, look, I don't, you guys can have these woods. You can do whatever you want out here. We can share it. This is your home. I said, but don't go in my house. My goodness. I said, if you want to come up and talk to me or see me or whatever, let me know. Wait till I'm awake. Don't do it while I'm asleep and I'll wake up and see you there. I said, I've never seen him in the house before, but I forgot to mention right before that happened, about a month before that happened with him, that little alien dude in my house, my son has a room. There's a big long hallway. We just built his room. And there's like a 16-foot hallway goes down through there. And we haven't put up his door yet. We just had like where the door would be going in for his bedroom door at the end of the hallway there. And we actually had Easton at that time because Easton was in that room with him. He said Easton woke him up because Easton was on the foot of his bed growling. And Peyton said he rolled over to look, and he seen a shadow at the door. He thought it was me. He goes, Dad, he hollered and he said, Dad, is that you? And it wasn't me. I was in bed asleep. And he turned the light on, and it was gone. There wasn't nothing there. And he told me about it that next morning. He said, I thought it was you. He said, you were hunkered down. You was as big as the doorway. Or I thought it was you, but you were like hunkered down so your head wouldn't hit the ceiling. He said, but it was real big. It was so big that it had to turn sideways so that shoulders wouldn't hit the walls. We were telling researchers that. And I thought Peyton was just dreaming. He thought, well, maybe I was, but I don't know why Easton was staring at him and growling until I turned the light on and it was gone. The researchers said that sometimes Bigfoot can come in your house like that. I don't know. I never seen it, so I can't. I have to take what my son tells me as truth. He's seen something, and we don't know what it was. But anyway, after that, then it was just our normal sightings. Like I would stand on the back deck, like I would see them in the nest. And I would just wave at him. And then I had one that was sitting there waving back with his fingers. I got a picture of it. He's all black with a tan thumb. I sent you a picture of it. And you just see his big old thumb. He wasn't using his hand to wave. He was just taking his fingers going up and down, waving back at me. And that was the first group that was out there. I think that group has moved on. Either they've left, because they had a baby, him and his mate. They had a little baby because they would show it to me. All the Bigfoots out there would hold up their babies and show them to me like they were so proud. And so I know now that my area is a birthing area. And what they'll do is they'll have a baby out there and raise them until they're so old, and so much in age or so maybe so certain strength to them where they can travel. And then they'll leave. They might be there a year or longer. And then once the baby's a good traveling age or whatever, they take off. Because that one group that I've seen that was kind of always friendly to me, they would, I've not seen them in a while now, for months. But that one thing I was saying about Wagum, it just popped in my head. When it said Wagum in my dream, probably 2 days later, I would go out on deck, and when I open the door and go out and sit down to the little table there, I would hear one out in the woods. It went, Wagum. It said the word that was in my dream. It screamed it. I thought, oh my God, that's the same thing I heard in my dream. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going crazy. And until I heard that, I said, they really did say that to me. And my friend was over. She was sitting out on deck with me like 2 days later. And I went in to get something to drink, and I come back out. Then I heard it say it again down in there. The same, it sounded like a female. It went, Wagum. And I thought, oh my God. She goes, what was that? I said, that's what I heard, in my dream that day. I said, so it must have been mind speak. I don't know. They've mind spoke to me more since then. Not really so much mind speak. It's more of pictures, like quick flashes. And then I had one that I had a friend staying out there, and I told her, do not go out in the woods by yourself. Don't walk the trail. And I had an 8-foot wide trail that I actually had made a road through my woods, a dirt road that goes into my field out back. And I used to always drive through there. I don't do it anymore because they've blocked the trail where I can't drive back there. They was just drag treetops into it. They drug this one big giant treetop there and blocked it. And I said, well, I was telling Peyton, we were back there looking. I said, I'm going to have to get the saw, come here and cut this up. I don't know why they would put it right here. And the next day it was gone. They moved it further away, so it wasn't blocking the trail anymore. And I thought, man, that's crazy. I took a before picture and after of that big treetop moved. And but anyway, the one that yelled Wagum, that just proved that what was in my dream, or what I thought was a dream, that it was true, that I wasn't going crazy. Because I thought that day that I heard it that morning that I really thought somebody was in my room. But when they spoke to me again, where I told her she wasn't allowed to go back in the woods, well, I got these visions, and I was awake. I wasn't home. I was in, a different county. But I was getting these visions, like flashes. Then I heard the words like "no good" or something. I don't know, talking about her, but it showed her walking the trail with her little dog in my woods. And I thought, wow, I told her not to go in there, and I don't know how I'm seeing this, but I asked her about it. Because I made it real clear not to go in my woods, and she said she never would. When I asked her about it, she just kind of looked at me like, how'd you know? Because nobody was there but her. And I said, because they told me. And she goes, me and Larry just walked back here to her little dog. We just walked back here a little ways and we came back. I said, well, don't do it again. But she wasn't there very long, so she never did. But another time, I got a vision of them. I used to set out peanut butter jars, and they would take, unscrew the lid, heat it, and put the lid back on it, or leave the lid off, or sometimes they would take the whole jar. And but I was wondering what they were doing with the jars, and I got like this vision in my head one day of the jar, but it had water. It was empty, but it had water in it. So I was thinking, oh, okay, they're telling me that they use the jars to drink out of. So I would set them out there, now, and because I've asked them before, could you don't leave the jars in the woods, the trash, and they sent me that vision of a jar with water in it. So I was like, okay. Yeah, the alien things. There's a lot of those out there. They're different kinds. I was told they were little people. I didn't know what little people were until the researchers told me. But what I'm thinking of the little people are the ones that look like little Bigfoots, because there's some out there I'm talking inches tall. I've got so many pictures of them. I got fascinated with them for about a month. That's all I cared to take pictures of. They built this nest like 30 feet from behind my lean-to building. And every time I go out there, I would just take pictures of them. They were only inches tall. And I know it sounds crazy, man, but I've got pictures to prove it. And there would be these little ones. They just look like miniature Bigfoots. But then those are the ones I think are the little people. And the other ones that I think are alien, they straight up look like aliens. I've got a picture of one. There was 3 of them together, and he was holding a walking stick. He had knee-high boots with a little cape on and like some kind of gray shirt. But he was staring at me, and there was a little smaller one behind him on one side and another one on the right side. And they were just staring at me. I think, at the time when I took that picture, I didn't know what I was taking a picture of. I was just, before all this happened in 2023, when I would walk in my woods, for some reason, I would take these random pictures of nothing. And I don't know why, when I get back home that night or the next day and I looked at pictures, why did I take a picture of this? It didn't make sense. It's like I'm taking a picture of leaves and, and trees, and there's nothing there. And it wasn't until after all this stuff started going on, I started going back and looking at my old pictures. And that's when I noticed, the one with the cape and the walking stick and all these other ones. There was one little, he was probably only maybe 7, 8 inches tall, and he was standing on the top of a snake. The snake looked dead. I got a picture of that. I'm like, he's wearing this funny looking hat. And I thought, what in the world, what is going on out here? But there are alien dudes out there. I call them little Yodas because that one kind of reminded me of a Yoda with his little gown on or whatever. But he wasn't he looked like a gray alien, but with tan skin. The big arm, but his eyes were more red than black. They had a red look to them, like the lenses were red. I've seen a lot of the eye shine. The eye shine's real. We would set out trail cameras because they would have so much activity by my lean-to building. They would go in the building, and I think they would get into my dumpster. So me and my son put out trail cameras, and ever since we did that, they quit going around that area. So we took the trail cameras down, and then they would go to that area. And again, I have a security camera that I would set on my deck out back to face the out backyard and down the hill towards the creek. And we've got a couple of pictures of them out there off that security camera. That's where I got a lot of the flying omnis, or like the long white rods and some other things that were real long that had like wavy looking pins on the sides from the front all the way to the back, bright white. And my orbs, I get a lot of orbs on the security camera. But one day me and my son were at my daughter's house in a totally different county. We were 70 miles away. My security camera that sits on the deck is set on this magnetic base, and it doesn't come off that base. You have to pull it off. But the base wasn't bolted down or nothing, so it's just sitting on my railing. The camera starts slowly rotating backwards, and it's pointing up towards the treetops. Instead of the creek, it's up at the treetops. And me and Peyton, we get notifications on our phone, and we can look at the video. We were like, what in the world? And I thought, well, maybe a dog or something was walking on deck and maybe stepped on the cord, and it tilted it back. But Peyton's like, no, there's no way, because that magnet is really strong. You could shake that base, and that camera will not come off. You have to use force to twist it. And then 5 minutes later, we both got another message from the security camera box or whatever, showing another video of the camera slowly lifting up, then turning sideways and slowly coming back down onto the railing. Couldn't see nothing else, didn't hear no sound. And we thought that was one of them little things out there just messing with it. And, once I started noticing them having technology of these little cubes and round looking things, they got one of them's got a round one almost looks like that security camera. I think maybe they were picking it up, checking it out to see if it's the same kind of stuff that they had. I know this all sounds crazy, man, but they've definitely got technology. I got a picture of one that had a leather satchel. I'm guessing it's leather. The strap is going across the Bigfoot, and it's going across his chest and going up over his right shoulder, and it looks like a leather satchel under his left arm. But you can see the buckles and everything. He had padding on his shoulders, on his left shoulder too, some kind of padding or something. And after I seen that one, I was like, you know what? I know I'm not crazy. This picture proves everything I've been saying. And but that's the only time. And I told Peyton, I said, I wonder how they carry all their stuff around, those cameras and whatever those cubes are. I'm not sure if they're cameras. I don't know what they are, but they got to be carrying around somehow. And I've not seen them have any pockets in their fur or their hair. But after seeing that satchel, I took 3 sequence pictures, one right after another. When I had that one with the satchel, I took one picture. He's looking dead at me with the satchel on. I could see it plain as day. The next picture, he's kind of turned sideways a little bit, like quartering away, where I could see more of his left shoulder going where his chest was. And then the third picture, he is completely sideways with some kind of white round ball up by his left temple. And it's got like a beam of light kind of coming out of it, almost like a smoke. And that's the technology that I'm talking about. Not all of them. I've not seen them all have it, but I've seen the majority of them have that technology. And it's just crazy. And still today, when I see them, as long as if they know I'm taking pictures of them, they pull that thing out. And I told them I wasn't going to take any more pictures, because sometimes when I take pictures of them, they look really mad, like it's hurting them almost. So I've talked to some people, and they said, yeah, we've always thought that because every time we take a picture, it looks like they're in pain. So I kind of calmed down on taking the pictures. I won't take one now unless it's going to be a really good one. And that's the only time I'll take any more pictures of them. And I'm used to, I would take a picture every time I see one, just take as many pictures of it as I could. But no, I don't. I just wait till I think it's a good one, then I'll take it. But when I bring out my big camera, I bought, a Nikon P950. It's got 2,000 millimeter zoom. I've used that camera out on my deck. That thing can reach out and touch somebody. But when I go to take a picture, there at the beginning, I would get pictures. But the more I started using that camera, they just won't they wouldn't show themselves. They would hide. And I would have that camera out there and just wait, for a couple hours and not see nothing. So I quit using it. And when I just use my cell phone, they don't seem to hide. They almost like stand up out of their nest and kind of look at me, see what I'm doing. And now, today, I took that one picture today. I got a really good one of the nest. It shows their face real good. Their ears. I've never seen one with their ears, but this one had a big, long, huge ear. It was flat up against their head, but the only reason I took that picture because it was a really, like I said, I'll only take them now if it's going to be if it comes out real clear. It's 90% of the time I've got thousands and thousands of pictures, but the majority of them are blurry, and I don't understand why. Because I could take a picture of the same distance and it'd be clear as a whistle, but you put one of them in it and it's blurry, and I don't understand how they do that. Maybe they'd had the technology where they could do something with the electromagnetic field or something. I don't know. I think that's about all I can talk about today.
Brian, you've got some incredible stuff going on, and it sounds like it's happening definitely current day. I mean, this is really recent stuff, some of it.
Oh, it's every day. Yeah, like I said, this morning I took that one 100 yards from the house, but they built the nest at the side where they can see it. I got 2 patio doors. They built these like 3 or 4 nests out there where they can see directly into my patio doors. So it's crazy. But I see them looking at me. I mean, they stand out. They're just so, now when the leaves come, I probably won't see them as easy, but right now when there's no leaves on the trees, they just stand out because they're so black.
Definitely have some questions for you about what I've been listening to. So it sounds like most of when you're trying to capture things, it's using a camera or a cell phone. Have there ever been any times when you've been able to be successful capturing video, or is that just a thing where it just does not work?
Well, I tried on my Nikon camera. Mm-hmm. I tried to do videos, but for some reason they don't move. It's like they know. Like I have one mid-wave. There was a young one. I would say if I had to guess a year, he was 12 years old. And his face looks completely human. I mean, it's either a really light gray or tan face and hand and stuff, but he's covered in black fur or hair. I don't want to call it fur because it's hair. And he had his arm up like he's like waving at me. But when I went to take a video of it, it just thought he froze. It's like he knew, but his arm and hand was still there. And I went ahead and screenshotted it because I put the camera on him for a while and he just wouldn't move. So I went ahead and just screenshot it, and I need to send you a picture of that because you can see his face plain as day, his arm, his hand.
I'd love to see that.
It's just wild. The reason I know it's hair because when they used to gift me, they gave me a chainsaw wrench that was rusted. It looked like it'd been in the woods for many, many, many years. It was all rusted, and it had this like 3-inch long black hair, one single strand of hair stuck to it. And I took pictures of it before I took the hair off. I took the hair off with tweezers and put it in a Ziploc bag. They've left rocks and other things, a feather and all kinds of stuff. And I used to gift them. This new group, they don't give me anything. They don't wave at me. They'll look right at me. Used to, I go out and say, hey, can you do a wood knock for me? Let me know you're still here. And boom, like seconds later, they'll wood knock. This new group don't do anything. They're just like, I wave at them, say, I see you, and I'll talk to them. They just look. That's all they do. They don't try to associate with me.
It is quite. It's wild, the stuff that is happening on this property. Have you talked to any neighbors regarding this, or do you even have neighbors that are around your area?
Yeah, I've got neighbors. You can't see their houses from mine because the woods are in between. And our main road out there is a gravel road. But I would walk up to my neighbor up the hill there. She'd been there since '79. We have caves on the property too. And she said, I've never seen anything. And I showed her footprints. I didn't want to scare her because she's almost 80 years old.
Right.
But she's a pretty smart woman. She's got it. And she's like, oh, I would love to see one. She goes, I've never seen it. I've been here, all my life, pretty well since the '70s, late '70s. And she's never seen it. Her son's never seen it. I thought, well, I don't know how long they've been here. I know they've been there since I moved in. But I don't know how long they've been there before that. Well, let me take that back. When I bought this cabin, for some reason, there was an elderly lady who lived there. She actually passed away in that house. I found out after I bought it, but she had these halogen lights all the way around it, powerful, powerful lights, even underneath it, because like I said, it's up off the ground. It's about 12 foot off the ground on one side and 4 foot off the ground on the other end. But she had these lights, and my neighbor across the street said, yeah, every morning I get up, go to work, she'd have that place lit up like Fort Knox. Everything was lit up. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. I wonder why she had all that. He goes, I don't know. She was just an older lady and was scared. But I think it's because she knew they were there.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why there were so many lights.
Oh, yeah. She was going through it.
And she just didn't tell nobody. When I talked to my other neighbor down the road, he said he's been there for about 10 years or so. He said he's heard of people talking about them, but he's personally never seen one. But I showed him, some footprint casts and pictures, and he's like, wow, But I try not to talk to everybody because they look at me like I'm crazy. Even when I'm showing them pictures, they're like, yeah, well, you're crazy. So I don't tell a whole lot. I only told a couple, or mentioned it to a couple of them.
Yeah, and that is it's a tricky thing, right? Because on the one hand, you're experiencing these things that are just simply incredible, and you want to make sure that your neighbors are on your side and aware of it for their safety, but also like if something happens, you guys can work together, right? But I've told people things that have happened to me, and you get that weird look, but I think it just gets to a point where you just have to be like, I can't control how they react to this, but some people, you just gotta share. But I do realize it can affect jobs, and sometimes it gets very tricky when you're sharing things like this, which is why I'm even incredibly thankful for people such as yourself, Brian, for coming on the show. You mentioned you talked to a few Bigfoot research organizations, but have you also ever talked to anyone, law enforcement, or I'm not sure what the equivalent of forestry workers are in your area of that forest? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I thought there was a brown bear out there one day. I sent you a picture of it. I was on my back. I walked around the side of my garage. I seen that out there, and I thought, man, that looks like a brown bear. So I took a picture of it, and I sent it to a game warden because I thought, there's a bear out here. He must have swam across the river. It didn't look like a black bear, or how a black bear could be brown in color or cinnamon. This looked like a brown bear from way up north. And I sent the picture to the game warden, and I was talking to him. He was a really nice guy. And I said, I want to talk to you off record if I can. He goes, yeah. I said, if I send you some pictures or something, can you kind of give me your input on it? He said, absolutely. So I sent him the pictures of what I thought was a bear. And I sent him some other pictures of Bigfoot. And the dogman, I had a really good one of Dogman. I sent that to him. And I didn't hear back from him. I never heard anything back. Like a week went by. And I texted him because he gave me his cell number. So I texted him, and he said, I asked him what he found out about that, if it looked like a bear to him or not. He said, no, it's not a bear. He said, we don't see tracks in the snow or anything. It's not a bear. And I didn't think it was a bear really either, because I went out looking for tracks and I didn't see any bear tracks. I carried my pistol on me, and I didn't see anything like made of the bear. So what it must have been, now that I think about it, because I've seen them wearing look like fur coats. I mean, I know it sounds weird because they're covered in hair, but the females aren't. Some of the females that I've seen don't have that much hair on them. Like, they're all gray skin, light gray skin. Some of them are tan. And some of them are calico looking, like black and tan. Like their faces would have black blotches. I sent you a up close picture of a female. Her face is kind of calico looking with the skin color, but they hardly have any hair on them. And I've seen them, and it looked like they had fur coats on, black fur coats with a hood that they pulled up over their head. And I've seen multiple of them wearing this, even a big male. There's one out there. This is going to sound crazy, but everything I told you sounds crazy. I was walking the trail to my field, and I was looking for prints. I found, a few prints in the snow, but I found one, I'm telling you, man, was almost 30 inches long and 16 inches wide at the widest. And it had I think it's like almost a 6-foot stride from the other print. I only seen the two. I didn't see any more but those two. And I didn't go in the woods looking. It was going across the trail. My trail's 8 foot wide. It was stepped on one side, and then about 6 foot over. I measured. I've got pictures of the tape measure, the measurements. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like 6 foot in between the strides or the footprints. And I measured that one. It was 30-something inches long and 16 inches wide. And I know it was with the one that I seen one night when I pulled in my driveway. Like I said, whenever I pull in my driveway, if I go to town and I come right back, they're back there waiting for me by the lean-to building. I'll see them standing out there. And I would take my phone and take pictures of them. And there's this one, my lean-to building's 10 foot high at the highest point. But on the other side, because it goes downhill, it's more than 10 foot. It's probably 11 and a half if you're on the backside of the lean-to to the top. There was one standing there behind my lean-to building that was 4 to 5 foot taller than my lean-to building. He had his left arm stretched out across the top of it, and he had this glowing red light in his hand. But he was standing there, and you could see his face. He had teeth. I mean, you could see his teeth. And all the other ones that I seen had blocky teeth. Didn't have no canines. This one had two. It looked like canines, but they were sharp. They were sharp looking. And he was smiling, but he had the hood pulled up. You could see his hair, but he had like this hood pulled up over his head. It looked like a fur coat. I sent you a picture of that one too. Just look for the one that's got the red light in his hand in my lean-to building. That's the one I'm talking about. He looks like he's about 15, 16 foot tall. So I'm assuming he's the one that left the big 30-something inch prints. I've seen him. I've got him in a couple of pictures, but I don't see him that often. I was bush hogging the field back here last year, and I seen him standing up on the edge of the tree line further up the hill because there was two down the hill on the backside watching me through the woods. I seen them two. I got a picture of them. Then as I was going back up, I seen the big black one, and he was massive. I mean, like I said, 14, 15 foot tall. He was just huge. But there's a local police officer that I met at the American Legion, and I was talking to him about, hey, have you ever heard of any Bigfoot or anything out here? And he just started laughing and said, no. So I showed him a couple of pictures. He said, well, I don't know what that is, but I've never seen anything like that or heard anything around here. That's the only two law enforcement I ever told.
That's very interesting. That kind of thing makes you wonder. Have you ever experienced anything on your property? Do you know what infrasound is? Are you aware of that?
I don't know what it is, but are you talking about being zapped?
Yeah. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
As far as yeah, all the time. When they're not happy with me, they zap me.
Okay.
What it feels like to me, and I hear it's different with other people.
Yeah.
But with me, it feels like there's a thumb just behind my left ear, right above it, and an index finger or a middle finger on the other side, and it's just squeezing like a vice. And then the pain will go up, the pressure will go up to the top of my head. And then when I get out of the area, it goes away. Like me and my son were walking the trail, and was talking about cutting this one tree down. We went around the curve and we're almost to the field. I said, yeah, because they pull these trees out, root balls and all. I mean, they just jerk them right out of the ground. Some of them are huge. Like it would take heavy machinery to really pull those things out of the ground like that. But they just pull them up and move them around and throw them down. Well, this one was real close to the edge of the trail. I said, well, I'm going to have to get my saw and cut that up. And as soon as I said that, I started getting this pressure on my head. And, you know, at that time, after talking to all the research and stuff, that's what was happening to me. I was getting zapped. And, you know, that happens a lot. I had, you know, after we logged the woods, I tried to stop the logging, but I'd sold the trees to the guy the year prior. And I offered to buy them back, and he didn't want to. He wanted the timber. So I had to sell it to him. And because I found out they were there is why I changed my mind about selling it to him, because I found out they were living there. And I tried to buy the trees back, and he was just, nah, I just want the timber. So that's what it was. And they got mad at me. I was sitting on my deck one night, and I was talking to Peyton on the phone. And I seen one just on the other side of the creek. He was probably about 40 yards away. He was standing behind a tree that was way too small for him. Like most of his body and his right arm and stuff was on the left side of the tree. His head and part of his left shoulder was on the right side. I took a video and pictures of him and everything. But he was zapping me hard. I mean, he was really getting me. And I got so unnerved by it. I felt doomed. I felt like something bad was going to happen. And this was 2 days after the woods was logged. And they had been gone for that whole week when they were logging. And they just kind of think they come back at night and seen it, and they were like, well, what happened here or whatever. And but they were mad. That one was really mad. I went in the house, shut the doors, shut all the blinds. As soon as I went in the house, I was on the phone with my daughter and my son. They were like, Dad, just come to Tony's or my daughter's, you know, and stay all night tonight. Don't worry about staying up here. I was like, nah, I'll be okay. Then I heard it real close to my deck. And went woo, woo, woo. Did it 3 times real loud. And I was like, oh my gosh, it just wooed. And as soon as I said that, it was in the backyard on the backside of my house. Did it again. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. So all I did, man, I told him I was coming, you know, and I was freaking out. I've never freaked out before, you know, and I don't get scared easy. But that night I was scared, even more so than the first time I seen the very first one. You know, that was a different type of scare. That was like, oh my God, they're real. This night was like, I'm in danger. That's how I felt. I was in danger. I grabbed my keys and my glasses and my wallet, and I went out. I didn't want to go out the front door because my truck was too far away. So I went through the house and went out to the garage. And when I opened that garage door, it was going so slow, opening it up. I was like, no, go faster, go faster. Well, as soon as I got up where I could get up under it, I took off, man. I ran. I hit my mirror so hard with my left shoulder of my truck, I, you know, shut it all the way back. And I jumped in the truck, hit my garage door, man, I was out of there. I didn't feel right until I got about 20 miles away. All that feeling went away. That was the worst time I've ever been zapped by them. It was just such bad dread, feeling like I was in danger. But it's never done that since then. I mean, I think they were just upset that the trees were gone, that the woods were logged. But
Right.
now I think they were happy afterwards. They ended up saying, hey, well, we got all this stuff here to make nests with. So they drug these treetops all, because when the guy logged it, he made a huge clearing, probably about 100 by 100 yard clearing. And on the side of the hill going towards the creek, they drug all these treetops down there and stacked them and put them where they wanted. And they put them right over top the little, like I said, drainage valleys where the rainwater goes through. It's kind of dug out, made it look like ditches through there, but really big ditches, like 3 foot deep, you know, and probably 6 foot wide. They put all these treetops over them, and they're living up under there. I got one picture of one, the little alien guy in the tree, the one that was in my room, and he was in the tree, but just to the right of it, on the ground, looks like a big sheet of metal that has these vents in it. Now that's never been in my woods before. And I sent, you know, like I said, I sent you the picture. Maybe you might be able to see it later on, but it just looks like a big sheet of metal with vents, and it's in one of their nests, and it's like over top of the little drainage thing goes through there. I don't know where they would have got that at. I didn't have any metal like that laying around, but they were trying to hide it with leaves and stuff like that.
Any of the researchers or other individuals that have come to the property, have they also been zapped as well, or is it just you?
No, well, there was a psychic that came with them. And me and him, he's never experienced Sasquatch or anything. I said, I'll walk back here with you. And me and him, just by ourselves, the trail, I mean, it's a pretty, it's just a dirt road. It goes along all the way along the ridge, all the way back to, pretty good far, like almost the full length of the 10 acres. And then it curves to the right and goes into the field. Another, 75 yards, you're in the field after the curve. Well, he was doing okay as he was walking back, but by the time we got to the curve, he started feeling real nervous. Like he said, he's feeling really strong energy. And I couldn't feel anything. And so we kept on walking. We went out to the field. We went on down to the corner of the field where we had some deer stands and stuff. And he walked in the woods there, and he didn't want to go in there. He said, I feel it's too strong. So we were walking back, and we could hear one parallel walking us. Like every time we'd walk, it would walk, and it was freaking him out. And when we would stop, it would stop. It was freaking him out so bad. Like his left hand and his fingertips just kept tapping his chest where his heart is. It just kept tapping real fast. He was nervous. His legs were shaking. I was like, man, they're not going to hurt you. They're just following us. They're trying to see who you are. I said, introduce yourself and tell them why you're here. Because I was told they understand English. I don't know personally. But I have asked them questions, and they've, asked them to do stuff, and they've done it. So apparently they do. Or I don't know if they understand English, but maybe they understand what I'm thinking, and they can read it that way. But anyway, he told them that he was there just to, learn more about them and stuff like that. And he felt a little bit better as we got back around the curve. It was only right there on that curve, from the curve to the field, is where he had the bad feeling. But once we got back to the curve and was turning left to head back towards my cabin, he felt better, And I'm going to tell you this one thing why it popped in my head, because as we turned back, was walking back, I thought it was real weird that a big deer just took off. It was right there on the edge, and it ran right into where they were. Me and my son were sitting on the deck one day, and about 100 yards out, a fawn comes running out from the brush. It starts running down the trail there, and it's, wee, looking for its mom. And it was just squalling, going crazy. And then it went across the trail into the other set of woods over there. And it just kept doing it. It just kept, wee. And then about probably a couple minutes later, a doe comes out from the same spot that the fawn came out. But this doe was bucking. I mean, it was bucking like a horse bucking, or a bull. It just kept throwing its legs up and bucking around. And I told him, we were looking at it, like, what's wrong with that doe? I thought maybe a vine was caught up around its legs or something, and it's trying to get it unhooked. But when it turned to the right, it was missing its whole right leg, shoulder and all, completely gone. And it was fresh, because you could see the white meat and the red and the blood, like its leg just got ripped off. And I thought, what in the world is that? And then the doe, it kept bucking around, and it ended up going right back down to where it came from. Like it just didn't know what it was doing. And the fawn stayed in that same spot till the next day. We kept hearing it, making the same wing noise, looking for its mom. And after that day, we never heard it or seen it again. So they must have went and got the fawn afterwards. But I've never seen them eat any animals. I've never found any kill. Never found any bones. Well, I have found bones. I found vertebrae, but they like would be one here or one there. Nothing, like a kill site by any means. But I've never seen them. I've never seen them eat anything other than what I've left them. I've not seen them eat it, but they would take apples. They would take the peanut butter and popcorn. They really like popcorn. They don't like bananas. As far as I know, they've never ate a banana. I took out a big ham, like a whole leg of ham. It was unprocessed. It's a fresh ham. I deboned it, and me and my son took it out there, and we dumped it. I mean, there was blood everywhere from the ham and all that. And it was just laying on the snow. It was gone the next day. They really like cinnamon rolls, the little cinnamon mini rolls without the icing on it. You can buy them at Walmart in like a little plastic container. They love those. I had one time I took a picture of. He was down, there's two of them inside this nest, and he was smiling ear to ear holding up a beer can, holding it towards me, like, hey, look at this. Like, I told him, son, I think he wants beer. You know, I got a picture of it. And then one behind him was like, had both his arms leaned up on the log behind him, like he had his arms up, leaning on it. And his head was bent down, but it looked like he was snickering, like laughing at the other one from holding that can out. I got a really good picture of it. And it looked straight up like a beer can to me. And so one day I set a pizza and a 6-pack of beer. I don't drink personally. So I don't know where the beer can would have came from. They would have had to got that somewhere else. But I went and bought a 6-pack of beer and a pizza, and I set it out on this log back here where I always see them when I come home. I set it back here, and they never touched it. I left it back here for a couple of days. But I just thought it was funny. They was holding up a beer can. Like I said, there's certain things they will eat and certain things they won't touch. You know, one time I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I don't mind feeding you all. I really enjoy it. I said, but don't get mad at it because, you know, if I can't do it every day or once a week, because, you know, I can't afford to keep doing this every day because food's expensive, right? And, you know, ever since I said that, they don't take any of my food anymore. It's like if they take it, they're taken from me. That's the vibe I get. So anytime I offer them food, they don't take it.
Brian, that's amazing. My goodness. Wow. You have something really special going on at that property. 100. It's special, dude. It's 100% special.
Yeah. One of the researchers for BFRO said that I had more activity here than Skinwalker Ranch. It's pretty wild. But I think it's because I see them every day. And I asked him, I said, do you ever hear of anybody interacting as much as me? He goes, never. In 40 years, never. That I would see them every day and get a picture of them anytime I want. Are
you keeping a journal of everything?
He has told me that about a dozen times.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in the Army, I got injured in Iraq, so I got TBI. Sure. And it's hard to remember stuff. So, you know, I should start making a journal. I was making this one, just making notes here, and I was having a hard time remembering. But I need to get my son with me because he's been there with me 90% of the time of all this stuff happening. You know, I'll just have to say, hey, look, man, we're going to do the best we can and start from the very beginning and just make the journal. And then from here on out, we just put in it every day, stay on top of it. But it's not like every day that I have any encounter. I'll see them, but I'm not going to write my journal. Hey, I seen 12 today. You know, I'm not going to write that down. I only write down stuff that if they interact or do something like throw rocks or whatever. Like I took my thermal out a couple of nights ago and took one laying down in the creek I have about 3 bridges that goes across the creeks out there. And he was by the second bridge, just kind of leaning down, trying to make his little self look small. But he was a juvenile. I mean, I could see his round head and his shoulder and his back. He was just down the creek, kind of bending over. But he was, like I said, a juvenile.
You've mentioned that you have audio recordings a few times. Are those available anywhere?
On my phones.
Okay.
I have rock clacking. I have, you know, wooing, laughing, the rocks going across the deck. I got a real loud roar one time. It was like, raw. And then it echoed. I thought it echoed after it did that. And the BFRO guy said, no, because he cleaned it up and everything. He said, no, that's a response roar that you hear after. I was like, oh, wow. But it sounded like it sounded mean, like a lion and an elephant together roaring. It just sounded mean, whatever it was.
Well, hold on. So it actually sounded like a lion and an elephant combined together.
Yes. I'll send you that video. I got it on recording because when I always set my Android out there to record for hours.
Yeah.
I have hours and hours and hours of recordings that I've not even listened to yet.
Oh my God.
Because they get boring after about 2 or 3 hours of listening to it. You don't want to listen anymore. I got things to do.
No, I get it.
You have to go back to finish it.
you have to.
No,
you have to pace yourself.
I always forget to go back.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I've got recordings that I've not listened to yet.
Goodness.
So one of these days I need to just sit down. Now I got a group of researchers, the same group that came out the last time. They're coming out next month.
Oh.
Staying for about a week. I told them they should do it before the leaves come on. just so they could see them. Because once the leaves hit, you're not going to see
sure.
nothing out there. You have to pretty much walk up on them. And so I've got, them coming back in April. So hopefully they'll get to see them like I do. Because I see them every time. If they just sit in the truck in my driveway and have a scope or something, they're going to see them out there in the nest.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, yeah.
If you're able to, I would be extremely interested to hear any recordings that if you have like clips or, I would love to listen to anything. It probably would be a little bit easier on my side. I don't know if you're able to email them to my email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com, but you can also send them to the same text thread. That's no problem either way really works. But
I can try. I'm not a tech savvy guy, but or a savvy guy, but my son will help me.
Okay.
We'll have to cut them down because, like I said, I don't know. I tried to do one myself, and I end up deleting the whole thing by accident.
Oh man.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to get my son. We're just doing it on my phone, my laptop messed up. So
okay.
Peyton says you need a new iPad, or not iPad, but a MacBook, and let me do it for you. Just kind of break it down in sections, the parts that you want to hear, so you're not listening to hours and nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got tree knocks. I got a video of me going back here and say, hey, would you do a tree knock? Let me know you're still here. 2 seconds later, pow, big tree knock. I've got that on video, and I've got me doing a video walking through the trail, and then one will do a wood knock back behind me, and I won't acknowledge it. I stop and I kind of look that way, but I don't acknowledge it, and I just keep on the video. But yeah, there's a lot of that stuff that goes on out there. The woos, wait till you hear the woos, and the roar is the only. I got some loud howls, or not loud, but long howls.
Yeah. But
you could barely hear them because they were way back in the woods, back behind me. There's over 100 acres on backside of me, So they were way back there. But they were some long, like maybe 10, 15 second howls. They would do like 3 or 4 and then stop. But it's been wintertime, so I've not been outside that much in winter, but in spring and summer, I'm out there having bonfires. And when I was living there by myself, when Peyton moved into town because he had a job, I would sit out there after I got off work and would have a bonfire late in the evening. It's almost dark. And this was before I knew they were there. I would hear this walking all around me. I'm like, what in the world? And I thought, is it deer? Surely deer ain't coming up to me, within 20, 30 feet of me in the tree line here. And I thought, it's too heavy to be raccoons. And it bugged me out. So I would get up and go in the house. And then the second night I'd go out there, but I would be face woods and have my back towards the creek, towards the house, so I could see what's walking around. But it was so dark you couldn't see anything past the firelight. But they were always just walking around checking out. And I know now if I ever want them to come close, I have a bonfire because they, for some reason, are really like bonfires. I think they just like looking at it. I don't know. Every time I burn trash in a dumpster, they all pop their heads up. And they'll come out. I call them little caves because they got tunnels they dug in my hillside.
Oh, dear.
They'll come out of those and to be standing at the doorway, like on their hands and knees and just watching the fire. That's why they don't want me to drive through my trail anymore with my truck, because they got tunnels going under it. Like you see them on the hillside, the tunnel goes up under the trail. So I already know there's a couple of caves out there on my property, but they're definitely tunneling. I don't know what they're doing. One guy asked me, why do you think they're out there? I said, I think they're mining. I think they're mining for some kind of mineral for the alien people. I mean, I know this sounds totally crazy, but man, I got pictures to prove what I say. The aliens are there. I got the little blue, and I sent you a picture of a Bigfoot and a little blue alien. Yep. He probably looks like he's maybe less than 2 foot tall. He's got blue skin and a white suit on. And I don't know if the Bigfoot's holding him or what, because the Bigfoot's almost translucent. Like I've seen him cloak right in front of me. Like I'll be looking at it and I go take a picture. As soon as I take the picture, they're cloaking. And then I can still see that their eyes and their mouth and nose and the shape of their head and shoulders and stuff, but you can see through them. And it's weird. I've got several pictures of them cloaked. It's just wild, or in the middle of cloaking, but me and my son walked back there one time to bring him some food. I think it was a big bowl of popcorn. And it was dark. And as we got to the corner of the garage, going towards the lean-to building, we heard one take off running. I think it was behind a lean-to building. He goes, "Oh my God, there was one right there." We couldn't see it, but it took off running. You could tell it was bipedal run going down the hill towards the creek. And, I was telling him, "Hey, we got you a tree. We brought you some popcorn. We hope you like it." Man, we gave him popcorn and sweet cornbread that we had left over from the stew. And they devoured it. You could see on the other side of the log, because they pushed a big tree down beside the lean-to building. So I can't go down that trail with my truck or tractor anymore. They put up barriers. Like, I'm okay to stay within the barriers. I'm not going to bother them. I can walk my trail because on each side of the trail, they got trees lined up, laying down their sides, lined up all the way down through there. And as long as I stay within the barrier, I'm good. But I have gone over the barrier before, and I've been growled at more than once, or grunted at, not growled, but grunted, like they do grunts. Especially in the back corner of my field, they built these huge nests back there. Like, we can't even use the deer stands back here anymore. They built right up close to them. So, and when I tried to walk, they built a barrier to the path that we would walk to the deer stand that looks out over the field. I walked back here over the barrier to go to that deer stand to see, about maybe taking it down, because I noticed the nest. They grunted twice, and I was like, "Okay, I got you. I'm going to leave, but one day I need to get this stand out of here." And I was hoping they would get the hint, take it down for me, and set it in the field. But we ended up just buying my son a pop-up blind and set it on the other side of the field. And I went out there, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and it was pushed down.
Oh my goodness. Brian, this conversation has been extremely enlightening and intense, and one of my favorites for this area of the country. I mean, it's wild, the stuff that is happening in southern Indiana. It just continues to keep coming out, and I'm sure people will be listening to this, and more stuff will be coming out about this area. But there's a few things before we start to wind down for this episode. So I can almost guarantee that this is going to be one of those episodes like the Mark Paul from Tennessee ones, where people are gonna. Is there a way people can contact you, Brian, or are you staying off the radar with this one?
Well, I'm not really staying off the radar, just my location.
Yep.
The reason I don't want my location getting out is because I've had people find out where I live. I had one guy messaging me on Messenger saying, "Hey, I could shoot one of them, man. We'll be famous." I was like, "No, dude. I'll tell you what, you come out here and try to shoot one, you're not going to make it out alive. They are so family oriented. The family clans, like I see them playing with their babies. Mm-hmm. I've walked the trail coming back home, and down by the creek at one of the biggest nests they have. They had a baby laying it was on a log, but there was snow, so it was on top of snow, but they were just tickling it and playing with it. One was holding its legs so it couldn't jump away. And I'm like, and they were just so family oriented. I got another picture. I think I sent one to you that I took a picture inside of the nest from the trail. I zoomed in, took a picture. There's a mother, and there's a young one, not taller size, juvenile size, has his arms around her neck and his face up pushed against hers. And she's smiling. And then there's a young one that I've seen waving at me. That's the same one I've seen waving at me. It's got this human-looking face. He was sitting down, and then beside him was the dad sitting down. The dad also has a human-looking face. Like, you would think he was just a guy wearing a costume, fur costume. And he had a baby sitting on his lap. And like a newborn, but not newborn, but it looked like it was maybe a couple months old. Like it could set itself up. And but they are so family oriented. They're always hugging each other. Like, I seen this huge male one time. My daughter was there, and my grandkids and her husband. She was down by the nest closest to the house taking pictures of the other nest. And this big male, there's a bunch of other ones behind him. He was sitting at about 100 yards from her, and I seen him, and I told Tony, I said, "Hey, you guys need to get up here. There's one right there, and they're watching you." And he was just sitting down, and there was a younger one that had both her arms wrapped around him, and her head was on his stomach. You could tell she was just squeezing him and just hugging him. And then there was, 2 or 3 behind him. One of them looked like it was snarling. Sometimes they look at you like they're mad and snarling. But there's this one, he always smiles when I take his picture. He smiles ear to ear. I've had him flip me off more than once. I don't know what that means. Same thing as what humans use it for, but they would hold their hand up, and then next picture, like they would show a picture of their hand, and the next picture of their middle finger sticking straight in there. I've had multiple ones doing that to me. I don't know if they might see humans doing that gesture, and maybe they think it means hello or goodbye or something, or maybe they think they know what it really means. But I've had that many times too.
Wow.
But my daughters, they don't come out much, and they've never really seen them, but they see the pictures. And it took my son a long time to be able to see one. Even I'm staring. I did a video one time in the corner of the trail, and there was one 20 feet away from him. It's a young one. It looked like a young female. I mean, maybe a 12-year-old. But I could tell it's female by her facial features, because the males and females look so different in the face.
Sure.
And I told Peyton, look, there's one right there. And he goes, I can't see it. I was like, Peyton, it's right there. How can you miss it? And I held my walking stick up and said, look down my walking stick. And I'm recording this on video at the same time. He goes, I can't see it, Dad. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went ahead and I stopped the video and took a picture, and we just kept on walking because it wooed at us to let us know it was there. A lot of times I won't see them. I think they're over in this one area. They'll either whistle or wood knock or woo, let me know, hey, no, we're over here. This was before the big bunch of them came. This was when there was only like 6 or 8 of them out there. One time I was walking back, because I always thought they were further back the trail where their original nest was. And as I was walking back, I said, well, they're not, I don't see anything. I think maybe they left. And I was recording a live video. And all of a sudden, I heard something thrown, and it landed like a branch, like a log or a small stick or a branch or something thrown, and it landed in the leaves. And I was like, what was that? And I stopped for a second. I was looking around, and then I heard it done again. So I started walking towards it. And then when I got almost to it, where the noise was, I heard it throw it again. And I looked. I seen it. I seen the stick coming through the air, and it landed close to the trail. They weren't trying to hit me. They were like 30, 40 feet ahead of me throwing the sticks. And what they were trying to do is get my attention. And I looked, and they had built this big woven dome-looking nest. I mean, it was real long, and it was probably, I'd say it was about 30, 40 feet long, and maybe about 10, 12 feet wide. And there's all these sticks and branches woven together, and you could see through it. I could see them in there. I got a really good baby shot of a newborn baby. And, and then several other Bigfoots. They got one out there I call the old man, because he's real old looking. I mean, his nose is real big. It hangs down over his top lip, and he's wrinkled real bad and got hardly no hair. He's all tan skin. Yeah, it's pretty wild. That's the same day I got the pictures of the cameras and looking things in the trees.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty wild, and that's an understatement for sure. But Brian, we are gonna definitely need to stay in touch. I have a feeling that we'll have to do an update with you in the future. But I mean, you're going through it, but you're handling it. I want to say, from my little knowledge so far, I think you're handling it in the right way, man. So keep it up, and I hope you continue to have a good relationship with them on your property. So
yeah, but I think I will be. I think the only thing they don't like me doing out there is taking so many pictures.
Right.
So I've cut down on that. I don't take hundreds a day. I just take, if I see a good one, I'll take a good one.
Yeah.
But that's, other than that, I think everything's going good. Like, I don't feel threatened at all, other than when I see a dogman staring at me, then I turn around and go the other way. But other than that, it's not. I've even seen the dogman babies. They look like little pigs with snouts, with dog or wolf-like snouts. They're just little chunky things, real short hair.
Wow.
I got pictures of them. I'll when I find my good pictures. I didn't bring my other phone with me. My Android. My Android's got all the good pictures because it has a better zoom on it.
So the ones you sent me were not the good ones?
My Android.
Brian, are you saying
these are the ones off my iPhone?
Oh my God.
The ones I sent you.
The ones you sent me are not the good ones.
No.
Oh wow, dude.
They're kind of blurry. Some of them are. some of them's okay, but some of them are blurry. Like I've got some good pictures, man. I got pictures of, gosh, wait till I send you the alien pictures, man. You're gonna,
Dude.
like I said, everything I say,
goodness.
I have proof.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
I won't say if I can't back it up. You know?
Absolutely. Brian, I thank you for coming on the show today and keep us up to date with what continues to happen. And you'll feel free to send anything else over that you have on your other phones or recordings or anything like that. But I appreciate you chatting today, man.
Yes, sir. And like I said, if you want to use some of my pictures for this podcast to kind of show people as we're talking, that like the lights and the aliens and things like that,
Absolutely.
You're more welcome to use those pictures on there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I usually ask that once when I'm editing, but thank you for giving me that okay now. But yeah, we'll be in touch, dude. You have a good one, man.
You too. Thank you so much.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean, or Arkansas. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one. If you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.